Welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be a little bit different than usual. My car unfortunately failed its MOT on a split CV boot or a split constant velocity boot, and also an anti-roll bar drop link, or what else can be known as a stabilizer. As you can see, the first thing I'm doing is I'm trying to take the wheel off, but unfortunately it's recently had some tyres and the wheel bolts are quite tight and I've obviously been over tightening. So I'm just using a 17mm socket with a crack bar to try and get them loose. One recommendation is, if you do remove and refit your wheel, is to get them torqued back up just for ease in the future. And once I've cracked all of these off, the ones that are tight, I've then gone and got a 1/2 inch impact gun, as you can see, just to remove the wheel bolts to allow me to remove the wheel. From there I remove the centre bolt. This is a 27mm bolt that attaches to the drive shaft. As you can see, I'm using an impact gun again just to make things easy. Then I use a copperhide hammer just to hit the drive shaft through the hub. As you can see as well, I'm just loosening the bolt and then giving it a slight tap with the hammer as well. The more I undo the bolt, the less I use the hammer to knock the drive shaft through, just to protect the threads on the bolt. Now that's out of the way, we jump onto the wheel arch liner, and it's nicely split into two, so we only have to take the bottom half of the wheel arch liner out. So there's several Torx 20 or Torx 25 screws, so we just quickly whiz them out. And there is some underneath as well, on the under tray and on the bumper, as you can see here. Once they're out, we remove the wheel arch liner. We then move on to the track rod end. We start by lubricating the threads, get a wire brush and give it a good scrub. There's nothing better than preparation. There's a saying, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And if you don't prepare on cars this old, you will cause yourself some problems. So I purchased a blowtorch from Amazon, which is super cheap, perfect for the job. So just get the nut and the thread hot, and it will make the removal of the nut so much more easy. Just bear in mind to avoid electrical cables and other boots, rubber boots that could get damaged by the blowtorch itself. Then we use an 18mm socket with a 1/2 inch ratchet just to remove the nut. Now as you can see, I'm going to refit the nut. The reason being is just to protect the threads, because I'm going to use a copperhide hammer to hit the hub to loosen the track rod out of the hub, as you can see here. So a few taps and then the track rod can be removed. Next we lubricate, and again we use a wire brush to prepare the bottom 3 lower wishbone bolts that connect onto the lower ball joint. So I'm just using a wire brush, and then again we use the blowtorch just to get them nice and hot to make ease of removal of the nut. Then we get a 16mm with a 3/8 ratchet and we remove each of the nuts. So I'm just going to quickly show you one by one. So that's the second one. And then lastly the third one. Then once they're all off, we use a copperhide hammer just to hit down on the wishbone, just to remove it from the lower ball joint. Next we jump onto the drop link or the stabilizer. Again, we use some lubrication, get the wire brush on there to give it a good clean, and then we use the blowtorch to get the nut and the thread hot, again for easy removal of the nut. So we then use the impact gun again along with an 18mm socket to remove the top nut. And then the same again on the lower nut. Just be careful on which direction you're pointing the blowtorch, just to protect other components. Then we get an 18mm ratchet spanner just to remove the lower nut. Once the two nuts are off, the drop link is then removable. I decided to remove the whole drive shaft just for ease, so I first wedged a screwdriver in the brake disc just to prevent the drive shaft from moving when I undid the bolts. If I didn't do this, the drive shaft would just spin. So I'm using a 3/8 ratchet with a long extension, and I think it's an 8 or a 10mm spline socket. Once I undo the top 3 drive shaft bolts, I then spin the drive shaft round, relocate the screwdriver, and then loosen the last 3 bolts. And once all 6 bolts are loose, I use a 3/8 impact gun to remove all 6 bolts quickly. This is really just for speed. I then pull on the hub, push down on the wishbone, and then that allows me to get the drive shaft out. And as you can see, the CV boot, or the constant velocity boot, is excessively worn and split. So I'll stop the video here because I forgot to show you how to remove the CV joint from the drive shaft. It's really simple. Cut the old boot off, get someone to hold the drive shaft, and then just give the joint a tap with the copper hide hammer to get it removed. Let's dive straight back into the video. So slide your boot on first. You want to keep the original, like, I don't know what they're called, but they slide on like a washer that's tapered, and then there's this like spacer / washer that is also tapered, so the taper goes against each other. Slide them on. The drive shaft's got a lot of splines on, and the joint as well does, so they need to locate nicely. It's imperative you do before you give it a tap with a hammer, otherwise you can damage the drive shaft. I'm going to cover the ball bearings that are in there. These are just it's just an aftermarket boot that I'm using. The car that I've got, the Octavia, is an old car. It's nothing special, so I don't mind throwing the non-genuine stuff. Usually I try and keep it to genuine stuff just because I know the quality's good. Don't get me wrong, the non-genuine stuff does a job, but it just doesn't most probably last as long. Right, we've located nicely there. Now I'll give it a tap with a hammer. Seated nicely. If you squash that, it just pulls it all tight. Start off putting the flange side in, and then we'll try our best to get a bolt started. Everything else should go in relatively easy. So what I'm going to do, just for speed, is use a little snap-on battery powered runner. Just like that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to locate the drive shaft into the hub. There we go. Bit of a wiggle. And then it's just got the low suspension arm in as well. And then that'll keep everything, just so I've just got this in as well. That'll just keep everything in place. And then I can tighten this nut now. For that nut we've got a big snap-on 1/2-inch gun. As you can see as well, it's going dark here, so the quicker the better, but I've got a head torch on just to help. Alright, that's all tight. Now I'll put the lower arm on, secure that one with the 3 nuts. Just if anything needs to come back off in the future, I just like to give the threads a bit of a grease with some copper grease. Does the 1, 2, stem 3 on now. I'm just gonna Last thing to do is a drop link. So again, we've got an aftermarket drop link. It's from Napa. I think it's Napa. Yeah, Napa. I'm going to throw this on. This will do the job. Get me through its MOT. Next thing we need to do is put the wheel arch trim in, wheel on, and then take it off its trolley jacks, and then we'll be all good to go. Yeah, true. Thanks for watching. I hope you've learned something. Speak to you soon. Catch you in the next video. Cheers again.